Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LingQ Podcast with me, your host, Elle. If you are an English learner, why not study from this podcast episode or any past podcast episodes? I create a lesson with each one on LingQ. The course is called English LingQ Podcast 2.0. The link to today's lesson, so the lesson for this episode, is in the description. LingQ is a tool that allows you to study from content you're interested in your target language. So you can take anything you're interested in from the internet, whether it be a podcast like this one, a YouTube video, maybe you're interested in studying your target language from music lyrics, whatever it is, you can create a lesson with it on LingQ. When you study from content that you find interesting, you're more likely to enjoy it and stick with it and actually learn the language, reach your goal. If you're not interested in creating your own lessons, we have tons and tons of lessons in dozens of languages already within the libraries on LingQ. So go in, take a look around, and there's bound to be something that you will enjoy. Today I am joined by a wonderful guest, Cole of the YouTube channel Cole Langs. Cole, how's it going?
Hi, Elle. It's going great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Excellent. Well, thank you for coming on. You're joining us from New York City today, right?
Yes, Manhattan.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. And how are things in NYC?
Extremely busy as usual. It's just normal city noises, but
Excellent.
Everything's great.
So, Cole, you run the channel Cole Langs, and I love your About tab. Really, to the point. You say, I love languages and going on adventures. Wonderful. So tell us, what kinds of videos do you create on Cole Langs?
Sure. So one of my greatest passions in life is language learning. So the crux of the channel is just me sharing my experiences with others. I love learning languages from all around the world. I love using them to interact with people. I love learning things about foreign cultures, geography, pretty much anything I can do to open my mind about the rest of the world. I like to experiment and see what I can learn from other people. Great.
And what then inspired, or do you remember when you first became passionate about specifically languages and language learning?
Oh yeah, of course. So I actually didn't. I'm 22 now. I'm about to turn 23, but I didn't get into languages until I was 17 or 18. Everyone at my high school had to learn either Spanish or French, and I chose Spanish simply because there were more speakers, but I didn't really care at the time. To me, it was just another subject. And I went through about 4 years of that, and then I got an amazing opportunity to go to Spain with my high school Spanish class. And once I got there, everything changed for me. It was the first time I'd been abroad, and after getting into a country where everybody speaks and interacts in a different language, it was mind-blowing to me. Just to see people conducting their lives like I conducted mine in the US, but in a different language, it made it feel so much more real. Right. And it was just like this code that I really wanted to crack. I wanted to figure out what people talked about on a daily basis and how their culture was different than ours. So once I got back to the US, I started learning Spanish on my own, and then I decided I wanted to be an exchange student. So I went to Taiwan for a year, learned Mandarin Chinese. There were a bunch of other exchange students there. My best friends in the world are from Mexico and Brazil and some other European countries. So I would just ask them to give me a word in their language every day. How do you say hello? And how do you say how are you? And they tell me, and then by the end of the year, I was able to have simple conversations in a number of languages. So to me, it was just a fun game of trying to figure out what other people around the world liked and how they spoke with each other. I love it so much.
Amazing. So that's so wonderful. You got to do that in high school. Was the Spanish trip, and then when you were an exchange student, was that in a college or university? Was that also high school that you went over to Taiwan?
That was also high school. So it was through something called the Rotary Youth Exchange Program, which I had never heard of before, but an announcement went on in my high school and said hey, you want to live in another country, come check out Rotary. So I went through that whole thing. It's a really long process, and I ended up getting arguably the hardest exchange location because of how different the culture and languages are. But I was open to the challenge, and it was the best year of my life.
fantastic. And so Spanish and Mandarin, and then have you learned or studied any languages after that?
Yeah. So ever since I was a kid, pretty much, I've wanted to be a diplomat. So I've studied all the official languages of the United Nations. So English, Spanish, French, Russian, Chinese, and Arabic, although I'm still a beginner in Arabic. And then also Portuguese, German, Italian, Dutch, and a little bit of a few others.
So a few, okay.
Yep.
Wow. So what is the trajectory for a diplomat then? And are you still on track? Is that something you still want to be?
Yeah, definitely. Well, my degree is in international relations.
Okay.
And you pretty much have to get a master's degree to go into this field because it's so competitive. Like, most people know several foreign languages to a very high level. And the first step of the process is you have to pass this really hard test called the Foreign Service Officers Test. And it tests you on a myriad of different subjects. Like the State Department, the governmental agency who conducts the test, they said that the best way to prepare for it is to simply be curious and to read and to have a habit of learning things, because there is no like curriculum you can study in order to pass your test. You're tested on such a broad array of topics that you have to accumulate all this knowledge over a period of many, many years. So I've actually taken the test twice and I failed it both times. So
oh dear.
Who knows? Maybe I'll get it next year.
And it's on like current events, world history, geography, just a mix of
anything. I've seen.
Brutal.
Well, actually, I'm not allowed to discuss like anything any questions about the test, but yeah, the topics range from like history and culture to geography, economics, mathematics, statistics, pretty much everything you learn in school.
Goodness, I had no idea. Wow, that's tough. Okay, you got it. The next one, you got it.
You're hoping.
Is there an official or unofficial number of the languages, the official languages of the UN that they want you to know?
I think it's up to you. They definitely prefer it if you can speak several languages. It just makes you more attractive and as a candidate. But as far as languages go, they do have a list of what they deem to be critical languages. I believe right now they're Arabic, Korean, Russian, Pashto, Urdu, and I'm blanking. Persian, Farsi, language spoken in Iran. But they, of course, they welcome anybody with language skills.
Okay. And critical meaning they have few people who speak these, so if you speak them, you'd be more likely to get on.
Exactly. There's a really large demand for people who speak those languages and not enough supply.
Wow. Oh, I did not know that. Okay. Wow. Best of luck with the whole diplomat thing. Back to your channel, though. So your channel is super fun. You do a lot of the kind of Omegle. We talked about this before we started recording. Seems like people pronounce it both ways. I wanted to try and pronounce it right so I don't seem as old as I am, but I'm going to go with Omegle. First off, for our listeners who don't know, who are as old as me or maybe older, what is Omegle and what do you do on Omegle?
So Omegle is basically a chat roulette site where you go on, you turn on your webcam, and you get paired with a random stranger. And the fun thing about it is pretty much anything can happen, and I mean like literally anything. I try to use it to practice languages, but sometimes you meet some weird people, but you can also meet some really cool people and have really like deep conversations. Like I've made some genuine friends on there that I've spoken to for like hours at a time. So it's a really fun site. If you know how to use it, you can add interest, and if someone also put in that interest, then the website will match you together. So I like to put like languages and travel and stuff like that, or geography maybe, and I just go on there and try to practice some languages with people and see what happens.
Yeah, and surprise a lot of people in the process, of course. That's gotta be so fun when you know it's coming, you know.
Well, it's because I can't help myself. Like the first question is always like, "Where are you from?" And if it's from a country that speaks a language that I know, I can't help myself. I have to say something in the language, even if I'm like really bad at it. It's such a good way to break the ice and make a connection with someone, no matter what you're doing or where you are.
Exactly. And as you say, even if you don't speak it well, that other person, though, surely appreciates you even saying anything. It's like it's just cool, right?
Yeah.
Someone's trying to connect with you if they're, trying to speak a language you know, or your mother tongue. It's very cool.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things I try to get across on my channel to people, is that you don't need to be really good at a language in order to have an impact on someone else or even yourself. Like, just knowing a few words or phrases can brighten up someone's day. Mm-hmm. Especially if that person is really used to like speaking English or another language in their daily life and may not get to hear their native language a lot of the time. Mm-hmm,
mm-hmm. And do you have a favorite interaction that you've had on Omegle?
Oh God, there have been so many awesome, amazing people, but also some really weird people. So I'll start with the latter. So the very first time, the only reason I started making Omegle videos was because someone left me a comment that said, hey, you should go on Omegle and practice languages. I'd never gone on Omegle before. And one of the first interactions I had was with this Finnish guy who elected to remain anonymous, who spoke easily over a dozen languages. And we just had this really cool back and forth, like, oh, you speak that? Oh, you speak that? Yeah, I speak a little bit. And he even shocked me with like some Taiwanese, which was really cool because I had just gotten back from Taiwan. So it was so cool to hear that language again. So that was definitely one of the cooler ones. Weird ones, I mean, take your pick,
I can imagine. I'm sure we all can.
Yeah.
Yeah. We talked about this before we came on. The old version of Omegle is the chat roulette. And yes, I had some experiences with suddenly a naked person showing up when you shuffle to the next. Or just people who were there to maybe not just have a nice conversation,
Yeah,
something else in mind.
Got a bit of an ulterior motive, perhaps.
Yeah.
But you mean a wide array of people. I had a guy serenade me with a guitar, like a jazz guitarist. I've had people try to play pranks on me, try to test me on geography, probably for like a TikTok or a YouTube video. But you just get every single kind of person under the sun. You never know what you're going to get. The old Forrest Gump quote.
Yeah, I've seen those geography ones. Actually, now I come to think of it, like scrolling on something where they ask you like 5 countries that start with whatever. I don't know, but seems like a very interesting place. Yes.
You could say that.
Yeah. Back to the language learning. I didn't ask you when you told us the languages that you have learned, that you know. What language learning methods work for you?
So I've gone back and forth with a lot of different methods. Personally, I like the whole input approach because I don't necessarily need to learn a language out of necessity. So if I had to speak a language in very little time, then I'd focus on output, which is simply just speaking and writing. There's really no way around that. You just have to keep doing it until you get better at it. Getting a native speaker tutor, helps a lot. I always say that everything changes once you meet someone who speaks that language that can be very patient and understanding of you. And of course, most people are, but if you have like a dedicated tutor, it helps so much. So what I usually do is I just try to get like a lot of the basic words, basic verbs, like to live, to work, to want, modal verbs. Common questions like, where are you from? What's your name? How do you say this in this language? And then I just build off of that with interacting with a lot of people by using apps. Pretty much anywhere I can get words and phrases.
Excellent.
There really is no like golden method. I know everyone looks for that one like universal method that's gonna make you fluent in a language in 1 week, but it really doesn't exist. You just have to find what works for you, and whatever you enjoy the most will allow you to progress the fastest, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. What language or languages are you learning now, or are you one of those people who just kind of exists studying every single one or catching, doing something, not every single one, but, some people do a little something in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, these polyglots.
I wish I could study every single one, honestly. Let's see. I'm learning a little bit of Hindi today.
Oh, nice.
But other than that, I try to live my life in different languages. Like, I have a lot of dead time, everyone does, where you're doing something where you could be doing something else at the same time. Like, I like to go for walks. Sometimes I have to clean and cook and exercise. So when I do activities like that, I turn on a podcast or a song in another language, and that helps me to retain what I've learned, or even to learn new words if it's a podcast built for learners. Mm-hmm. But when I go out of my way to deliberately sit down and do my input learning, I usually only focus on one or two languages at a time, and then review what I've learned so that it stays in my memory for longer. But I don't really worry too much about maintaining my languages, because I know that at any given time I can just kind of, like revitalize,
right?
Like remember what I've learned. Because like recall is one thing, right, and storage is another. Once you have those words in your head, they're there forever. Your recall might get a little rusty, but once you see them again in like a text or a song or any sort of medium, it'll come back to you, and you'll be able to use it very easily once again. Right,
and that's been the case with all of your languages. Is there one or more that you find that's difficult?
I would say Chinese has been very difficult. That's why I elected to study it in a formal setting at university.
Right.
Because it's so much easier to have, first of all, be able to practice it several days a week, so that you can really nail down those common words and phrases. Because most of learning a language requires mastering the fundamentals. I think that's something that people neglect a lot. So that to get to that intermediate or advanced level, you really have to nail down those fundamentals. And a lot of people don't like to go back and review, like, I want to eat this, and those common questions, out of pride, perhaps. But I find that's where the most of my progress comes from, is going back to the fundamentals.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Well, Cole, tell us about what's in store for Cole Langs and just you in general for the rest of the year and moving forward.
Oh God, I actually have some really big plans I haven't talked about on the channel yet, but what the heck, let's do it.
Okay.
So
exclusive.
So I have a goal. I have an ultimate YouTube goal I'd like to achieve. I call it, I don't have a name for it yet, but it's pretty much like my 4 or 5 year plan on YouTube. Is I want to speak 100 different languages with native speakers in person, and just learn enough of the language to connect with people. That's kind of the standard, because that's why we learn languages, right? Mm-hmm. It's all about people at the end of the day.
Wow. Do you know the 100, or are you just gonna kind of choose as you go?
Not yet. After about like number 50 or 60, the amount of resources there are for other languages drops off significantly. So I'll have to kind of cross that bridge when I come to it. Mm-hmm. But I think it's definitely doable, yet utterly ridiculous, or it sounds utterly ridiculous to the point where people want to tune in to kind of join me on my journey. So that's kind of the idea. Is I want to explore as much of the world as I can, and educate myself as much as possible about the human experience.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, it doesn't sound ridiculous. It sounds intriguing and exciting for sure.
Thank you. I'm glad you think so.
When you get down the list, you should try Welsh.
Oh yeah, that's already on the list. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Okay. I always have to try and be an ambassador for Welsh. So, wow. So it's a 4 to 5 year plan, and 100 languages, and in each one you want to be able to engage with a native speaker and just have a kind of, a back and forth, a conversation.
Yes, exactly. Enough to explore the culture and to make a connection with someone who speaks that language.
Fantastic. I love it. Wow. This is something to tune in for and subscribe to your channel for, everybody.
Oh, thank you very much.
Wow. Okay. So for listeners who do subscribe, I guess you'll have a name for it once you talk about it on your channel. But yeah, best of luck with that. That sounds very, very cool. Exciting.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Well, listen, Cole, thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, I wish you all the best with the exam there, the UN ambassador exam. I'm trying to think of what's it called. What is the name of that exam again? I'm very fascinated by this. The fact that they don't really, there's no curriculum. I want to check it out online afterwards.
It's called the FSOT, or the Foreign Service Officers Test.
Okay. Well, best of luck with your next attempt at this. To me, sounds brutal exam. And best of luck with Cole Lang's and this amazing 100 languages challenge. And again, yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Cole.
Yeah, of course. It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.